Okay, so I got a few more defensive use of a firearm incidents to tell you about from this past week. We're going to start in Oakland, California, the 38th most dangerous city in the world. We got a 33-year-old male victim who was injured, another adult male that was unharmed, and a suspect that was injured and arrested. Argument leads to shooting between customers, suspect in ski mask. Clerk fired shots and chased the suspect. All right. A surveillance camera captured a daytime shootout inside an Oakland convenience store that sent 2 men to the hospital and a customer running for cover. The shooting happened Sunday at Market 1. The surveillance footage shows 2 men, one wearing a ski mask, walking into a store and starting argument seconds later. When one man gestures to the head of the man in the ski mask, the man in the mask pulls a gun and starts shooting. As a customer ducks for cover, video shows a third man, the cashier, grabbing a gun and firing at the man in the ski mask and then chasing after him. The owner of the store, who did not want to be identified, said despite the private security which now helps patrol the neighborhood, he still feels like a target for violence and theft. So I actually found video of this one. And so basically, these are 2 guys go in, they start fighting, and one guy just starts shooting, and the guy working at the store starts firing back. And both the guy that working at the store and the suspect were both injured in that one. All right, let's go to Brentwood, California, which is a relatively safe area. The victim, who was also armed, fired 3 to 4 rounds at a suspect who then fled in a vehicle. So we got a male victim who was unharmed. An apparent attempted vehicle burglary in Brentwood early Sunday morning turned into a shootout between the victim and the suspects. Brentwood police said in a statement that around 4 a.m. Sunday, the officers responded to a report of a shooting in front of a residence. Police said the victim discovered suspects in the driveway attempting to break into the victim's vehicle. The vehicle's owner confronted the suspects, after which one of them fired a shot at the victim. The victim, who was also armed, fired 3 to 4 rounds at the suspects, who then fled in a vehicle. The victim wasn't injured, and although the suspects did not appear to be shot, it's unknown if they sustained any injuries. So this is happening a lot. People are catching people in the act of breaking into their cars or trying to steal their cars, and they come out, the homeowner comes out, and they often have a gun and they start shooting, and sometimes they get in shootouts. This one, at least he chased the guys away. So let's move on to good old Chicago, Illinois at the O'Reilly Auto Parts. An adult male victim who was unharmed, and a suspect, an adult male, was killed at the auto parts store. Man trying to rob the store was pronounced dead at the hospital. Let's see. A man is dead after getting shot while trying to rob an auto parts store in the Calumet Heights. According to the Chicago Police Department, a 30 to 40-year-old man entered an auto parts store around 2:30 p.m., pulled out a gun and demanded money from the cash register. Police said the store manager, who had a concealed carry permit, pulled out a gun and fired shots, hitting the 30 to 40-year-old man, who was then taken to the University of Chicago Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead. No other information is available at this time, as Area 2 detectives continue to investigate. So, again, the clerk at the store has a gun, legally has a gun. Someone comes in and tries to rob him, and he shoots at the guy, and however you want to look at it, fortunately or unfortunately, the criminal is no longer on the streets of Chicago. All right, we're looking at now Manhattan, New York. The victim, a 57-year-old male named Mausa Diarra, and a suspect, an adult male named Rody Charles. Let's see what Rody Charles is up to. Prosecutors dropped attempted murder charges against a parking garage attendant accused of shooting a thief in Manhattan. Musa Diarra, he was the parking lot person, said he saw Rody Charles peering into cars early Saturday at a garage in Midtown. Police say Charles pulled a gun when Diarra confronted him. Diarra then tried to wrestle away the weapon. That is when the gun went off, striking Diarra. Police say Diarra turned the gun on Charles and shot him twice. Both men were charged with attempted murder and assault. Of course they were. This is New York. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office threw out the charges against Diarra. So they threw out the charges against the guy who approached the guy who was attempting to break into cars. That guy in New York was lucky he didn't get prosecuted as well. Okay, Rockford, Illinois. An adult male was unharmed, and the suspect was 15 years old, and he was also unharmed, and he was arrested. And four Rockford teenagers have been charged with armed robbery after an incident during an online sales exchange. 1:45 p.m., officers responded to a house for reports of an armed robbery and shots fired. According to a news release from the Rockford Police Department, 2 victims of the armed robbery were attempting to sell items at a meetup with online buyers. The victims and 4 teenagers met at a home and began to struggle over the items. After attempting to steal the items, one of the suspects, a 15-year-old male, fired a handgun at the victim. One of the victims was a concealed carry holder who fired his own gun back at the suspects. No one was hit by the gunfire. The suspects drove away from the scene but were stopped a short time later by police, who eventually recovered a handgun that was stolen from Genoa, Illinois. So these online, when you're buying and selling stuff online, these stories from like Craigslist and that, they go back a long time, that they're just not safe most of the time. I guess it depends on what neighborhood you're doing it in and what the items are. But I imagine if this group of 4 teenage thugs shows up to buy something, they weren't buying women's clothing or anything. They were probably buying something that you shouldn't be selling online, or that isn't something that would be, when you're selling to, if the group of people you're selling to is not of a certain, I don't know how to say that and not make it sound really bad. So we're going to move on to St. Louis, Missouri, where a 48-year-old victim was unharmed and the 36-year-old suspect was injured. Subject shot attacker during altercation on bus. Possibly defensive gun use. A gunman shot a man who allegedly attacked him Monday afternoon on a Metro bus in North St. Louis. The shooting happened while both were riding on the bus in the Mark Twain neighborhood, which we'll talk about this. The Mark Twain neighborhood, there are a lot of bad neighborhoods in St. Louis. And the Mark Twain neighborhood has a violent crime rate 712% higher than the national average. It's not the worst neighborhood in St. Louis by any means, but it is definitely up there and is definitely not safe. So anyway, police responded to the situation around 1:30 p.m. Both men departed the bus as officers arrived. Investigators say the man who was shot had physically attacked the alleged gunman moments before the shooting. During the attack, the alleged gunman pulled out his weapon and shot the other man. Both men were sent to the hospital for treatment after the incident. The alleged gunman was 48 years old. The man shot was 36 years old. No one else was hurt from the situation. St. Louis police are investigating the shooting, though have not disclosed whether there were arrests or criminal charges in the case. So this guy gets attacked on the bus, which any transit these days in any city, they're just not safe anymore. So this guy gets attacked on the bus and he ends up shooting his attacker. This is a story that, this stuff plays out every day. with people getting attacked on buses and, light rail trains and stuff all the time. Let's go to Houston, Texas, where the victim in this one was killed. He was 43 years old. His name is Joel Villarreal. And let's see. Houston police are searching for a person of interest in the deadly shooting of a man outside a smoke shop in the Spring Branch area. Investigators believe the man who was killed, identified by family members as 43-year-old Joel Villarreal, was trying to stop a group of robbers from fleeing the scene. Officers were called to a Lighthouse Smoke and Vape store just about 6:45 p.m. on Tuesday, March 28th. Investigators said 2 or 3 men had just robbed the shop and were fleeing when a bystander tried to stop them, sparking a shootout. Police said at least one of the suspects had a gun. Villarreal was shot once and pronounced dead at the hospital. So this wasn't even the guy that was at the smoke shop. He didn't even work at the smoke shop. He was just an innocent bystander that happened to be there. He saw the robbery go down, and he decided that since he had a gun, he was going to intervene. And, the bad guys had guns too. And gets in a shootout with these guys, and he's the one that ends up getting killed. It doesn't say if any of the suspects even got hit in the shootout, or if any of them ended up going to the hospital. Okay, so Memphis, Tennessee, at the Crew Lounge in Memphis, Tennessee. I think I've heard of stuff happening at this place before, Crew Lounge. So we have a security guard who was injured, an adult male that was injured, another security guard that was unharmed, and the suspect was an adult male, and he was also unharmed. Customer and security guard shot when 2 guards returned gunfire from another intoxicated customer after an altercation. Memphis police responded to a shooting at Crew Lounge, leaving 2 injured on Tuesday. When officers arrived on the scene at 10:51 p.m., a group of individuals directed him to an injured victim with a gunshot wound to the lower stomach. The officers saw a security guard inside the lounge near the entrance with a gunshot wound to the left shoulder. According to the police, the suspect entered into a verbal altercation with another customer after the 2 bumped into each other while walking by. Okay, this is one of those stories. The suspect was upset over bumping into somebody who walked by him, and he exited the business. The report states that the security guard was advised not to let him back inside the lounge. So 8 minutes later, the suspect returns to enter the business, but the security guard refused to let him in, causing an argument. The security guard picked the suspect up and carried him away, says police. As the guard turned around, the suspect attempted to hit him. According to the documents, this caused a physical altercation, leaving the suspect saying, "I got something for that." 7 minutes later, the man returned and opened fire using a semi-automatic gun. The security guard fired back. The suspect was last seen fleeing the scene northbound in the alleyway and then entering a red Honda sedan, leaving the scene. So this guy bumps into somebody at a bar, gets so upset he leaves. He leaves and comes back, and the first time he comes back, he doesn't come back with a gun, like often happens. He leaves, he just comes back. He's not allowed in. They kick him out, but this really makes him mad. He's like, "I got something for this." And he goes back out to his car. He comes back with a gun and opens fire. I probably don't need to tell you who this suspect probably is, because there's a certain pattern there that we all know about. But that's basically what happened in that one, is he came back and he just started shooting up the place. So those are all the incidents I have for this week for you for the defensive use, self-defense stories. Hopefully you found at least 1 or 2 of them interesting, and I'll catch you next week with some more.